am going to start with some comments that were made by Mark Hamill on Monday, actually. And it's regarding his involvement with Star Wars in the future, and specifically playing Luke Skywalker again. So he did an interview with Entertainment Weekly, and the quotes I'm going to read are directly from that interview. And they were asking him on, if he'd ever be willing to go back and return and reprise his role as Luke Skywalker. These are the quotes that he said right here. So he said, "Oh, I can't imagine that, no. I had a beginning, middle, and end. Those films gave me far more than I ever expected when we started out, so it's never even occurred to me. My farewell was in episode 9, and it was bittersweet. I love all those people, and I certainly have affection for George and the characters he created. I'm full of gratitude for what was given to me in my career, but I don't want to be greedy. There are still so many more stories that need to be told, and so many great actors to tell them. They don't need me." He continued on, and he talked a little bit more about The Mandalorian, and he stated, "I think they have a wonderful advantage in The Mandalorian, in that it's economically storytelling. They don't have to have the burden of delivering a gigantic special effects extravaganza like the films we had to do." He exclaims, "It sort of gets back to the basics of George envisioning it as a Western in space. It has a tone of Sergio Leone Western. I'm very impressed with and to me, a very smart move on the part because they can't keep trying to top. It's like superhero movies that have to deliver these gargantuan epics. And The Mandalorian, they can just concentrate more on the characters and the storytelling. So I think it's excellent." So that's all he had to say on both of those questions. And overall, it kind of states his involvement with the franchise going forward. So I think it's safe to say that he's done. And he's not going to be reprising his role anytime soon. He had his late and great cameo, which was in this sequel trilogy, which he actually got a lot more screen time and attention than any of us ever really thought he would. If he was to reprise his role in The Force Awakens, as we once were told, most of us assumed it was just going to be a slight cameo, no major involvement in the overall story. But it turned out he became a very pivotal character and very important to the overall story going forward and ending the saga, the Skywalker saga. It's no surprise that, or no secret that he wasn't a fan of the sequel trilogy, of any of the movies, actually. He didn't like the fact that he had no lines in The Force Awakens or screen time. He did not like The Last Jedi's interpretation of his character. Not that he claims it as his character, don't misread me here, but he didn't like the story that was being told about Luke. And then his involvement with 9 was just he was just there, as he says. He really didn't have any attachment to it, so it seemed. So his story is over. I don't think that's because he disliked this sequel trilogy so much as what made him want to be done with the character. I think it's because he had, like he says, that ending. And to keep going back to it would just it would touch it in a bad way, and it wouldn't make it special anymore. And, he says he had a beginning, middle, and end. I think his ending, to me, was in Return of the Jedi. I think his fulfillment to the character and the story was completed then and there. And everything going forward was these new characters' roles. He was just the Obi-Wan of the series in the sequel trilogy. But that's just my opinion. I would really like him to reprise his role at some point, even if it is just for a small cameo, like I once thought it would be in the sequel trilogy. Showing up in The Mandalorian or in future projects. Luke Skywalker is going to be back in the franchise in some way. Don't mistake that. It's just not going to be played by Mark Hamill, is what it appears to be. So, we'll see, but that's the latest quotes from Mark Hamill. Let me know what you guys think.
So who talks first? You talk first? I talk first.